Without further ado, I would love to introduce today's presenter, Dan Drucker, who is the founder and facilitator of Philanthropy Fuel. Dan holds all the secrets to what you want to know. I want to give him as much time as possible today to share with you. This is an interactive session. If you want to raise your hand and you have a question for Dan in the middle of something that's pertinent and timely of that moment, just go ahead and raise your hand and we will try to call on you. So without further ado, Dan, welcome, and we're really thrilled to have you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Allison. I am really excited to be here. So welcome, everyone. Appreciate you joining us today. I know everybody's busy. So the name of the workshop is Aligning Missions, Building Corporate Partnerships that Drive Change. And what we're really trying to do today in just an hour, so it's tight, is provide you with some strategies, some tips that you with your nonprofit can use to forge impactful corporate partnerships. And the key word there is impactful. So this isn't the same old sponsor a golf outing type of partnership or a one-way arrangement. This is really deep partnerships that help both organizations advance their missions forward. So we've got a lot of ground to forward. I really encourage people to be active in the chat, talk to each other, share, ask questions. We can learn from each other. You can learn from me. I can learn from you. That's the whole idea. So let's dive right into it so we don't waste any time. Just a quick thing on my background. I have about 35 years in corporate B2B sales and marketing, the last 10 of which I was on the executive board of a division of Canon, running the sales and marketing for them throughout the United States. I retired from that in January of 2024, so I could focus on some of the things you see in the second bullet. My wife and I love to get outdoors. We like to hike, we like to bike, we like to go on excursions with the dog. I like to do photography. Canon was nice enough to gift me with a brand new camera on my way out, which I sincerely appreciated. And I am a very passionate dog shelter volunteer. So I spend as much time there as I can. As I mentioned, retired at the beginning of 2024. Started kind of dipping my toe in the nonprofit sector in about February or March of 2024. And in August, I launched Philanthropy Fuel. And I kind of just saw where it took me and where it ended up taking me, pretty much towards Q4 of last year was helping organization forge good and effective corporate partnerships. It seemed to be something that was needed. We're going to talk about why it's even needed more now than ever before. And it was something I had in my background in terms of reaching out to the Fortune 500, the Fortune 1000, small businesses, whatever it might be, to talk about mutual benefits. So that's kind of it. I do like to throw in a good dad pun once in a while. So my background is also my background, as you are looking at one of my photos there on your screen, hopefully. So let's jump into this. It's great for me to tell you what I want you to get out of this workshop, but what's way more important is what you hope to gain from today's workshop. And the truth is, you all took an hour out of your day. Everybody's really busy now. So I know some people are talking in the chat already. If you all wouldn't mind, just drop one thing, what you hope to gain from today's workshop into the chat so we can make sure that we're on target with what you need to get out of this. I see ways to connect with corporate. That's what we're going to be covering. Strategies to gain long-term corporate partners. Love that versus one-off project base. Emily, thank you. That's perfect. We're going to talk about that in detail today. Good stuff. All right, I'll keep looking at those. Multi-year funding. The whole idea, thanks, Jared. The whole idea is not to be a one-off. I want to help nonprofits get to the point where you're not living what I say, paycheck to paycheck. How do you engage with them throughout the year? How do you build multi-year partnerships and not just one-off sponsorships? So that's what we're going to dive into. Great stuff. Keep it going in the chat. I love it. All right. So this is what I hope you take away today. And quite frankly, this is serving as an agenda. The importance of corporate partnerships. Why today it's more important than ever. The evolving landscape of corporate giving. It's changed. It's going to continue to change. And I think it's changing for the better. We'll talk a lot about that. I'm going to show you some strategies and tools to use. That's going to include AI. It's going to include LinkedIn. And we're going to do what I called in my marketing days super specific outreach or super personalized outreach. How do you make yourself known? How do you grab attention, in this massively chaotic information overload world? Designing win-win partnerships. I know that's a cliche term, but I'll explain what I'm talking about when we get to that. As with everything else, there's always pitfalls and potential obstacles, but a lot of it can be mitigated with the work you do up front. And I'm going to give you 5 or 6 things to take away that you can go back to your office, whether it's real or virtual, this afternoon, tomorrow morning, and start to put them in practice. So we're going to get rocking now, and we are going to start with the importance of corporate partnerships. There's a lot going on. So the real question is, why are we here today? Why are we even talking about this? Well, you know a lot of this stuff. There's political and economic instability, and we can dive deep into the cause of that, but it doesn't really matter. The fact is, it's there, it's global, it's not going away anytime soon, and that kind of throws a wrench into some other types of relationships or other types of funding that you may have relied on in the past, which obviously drives the need to diversify funding. And again, I'm not just saying this to say, oh, it'd be great if you had different, different forms of funding. For some of you, you may not need it. For some of you, you may have various forms of funding, but a lot of stuff's coming up with the need to diversify funding. Obviously, anybody that was relying on grants is in a little bit of a precarious position today. But I like to give the example even of, let's say, major universities or any universities. If you look at the year over year funding for a lot of them, they have grown in terms of total dollars. But if you dive deep into those numbers, a lot of them are getting those total dollars from a smaller and smaller group of high wealth donors. Now, kudos to those donors for giving more money, and kudos to the university for nurturing those relationships. But that is a huge risk. As that group gets smaller and smaller, eventually it starts to dry up, and there's a big gap created if they haven't found other means of funding. So again, that's a risk that we're trying to help organizations avoid. Besides talking about the changing landscape of corporate giving, I think the whole landscape of philanthropy has changed. And actually, I'm kind of excited about it. So, people, for the most part, no longer want to just give money. And a lot of this is driven by what I'm going to call the younger generations, millennials and Gen Z. For some of you, it's your generations. And maybe for a couple of you out there, those are the older generation. And great to have you on board. For me, they're the younger generations. And those younger generations, and now a lot of people, even in the we'll just call it the more tenured generations, they want more out of their giving. They want to be part of something. They want to be part of a community that's solving problems. They want to be part of something bigger themselves. They want to give in other ways other than just financial, and whether that's volunteering, advocacy, peer-to-peer fundraising, whatever it is, they want to be more involved. And that all drives how we're going to talk about corporate partnerships. And then you've got the evolving landscape of corporate giving, which is what we're here to talk about today. So I'll be diving into that in a moment. I'm not going to throw a lot of statistics at you today because, as you all know, you work with data. You can make the data say whatever it is you want it to say. But these two kind of caught my eye when taken together. The first one is that total corporate giving rose to about $36.5 billion in 2023, second highest total on record. That's awesome, right? I mean, we would all love to have a piece of that. But interestingly, that only represented 7% of charitable giving in 2023. 7%. So when I take those two numbers together, what jumps out at me is an absolute opportunity. An opportunity to both increase the total and just grow the number of organizations that can take advantage of what corporations have to give, including small and mid-sized nonprofits. So it's poll time. We're going to jump right into that. So it's not the poll you see on your screen. That was just an AI creation for an image. But I just want to get a quick feel of where you all are with your current level of corporate partnership. So it's one question. It's on your screen now. If you would all take the time to vote, take a minute and do that. Pick what aspects of corporate giving have impacted your organization the most. And what I'm trying to do here is get a feel for the audience and for you to see, with your peers, where you are kind of on the spectrum of corporate partnerships. So if everybody can take the time to do that, and then we'll submit the answers. We'll take a look at what comes up. So you can see where it's going here, and I'm not surprised. This is kind of what I expected. Direct financial contributions, donations, grants. There's probably a lot of sponsorships in there as well. Some of you, 16%, have had no corporate support, so that's interesting. Very, very few have had employee volunteerism. I'm going to talk a lot about why that's really important in the corporate partnerships of the future. So this is beautiful. This is kind of what I expected, and it does lead into what we're going to talk about today. So I am happy about that, and thank you all for participating in that. All right, the evolving landscape of corporate giving. So corporations today are under immense pressure to demonstrate real, authentic commitment to sustainability and social responsibility. And there's no question they're being driven to do that by the younger generations. They're the catalysts. And the reason is all these corporations, all these businesses, they're in a fight for talent. They're in a fight to attract talent, they're in a fight to retain talent, and they're in a fight to motivate talent. And a lot of people, younger generations leading the way, but other generations as well, they're not going to work for companies that are not truly committed to pushing a social change agenda. They're not going to work for companies that are just doing it for marketing or PR spin or putting a post out there about the month, the special month du jour, whatever it is. They want to both work for and purchase goods and services from organizations that are doing real good in the world. Now, the other piece that I'm really excited about, and I'm working with a couple of them, is the rise of social enterprises. As you all know, a social enterprise is a for-profit, but their number one mission is social impact. And they're using their for-profit services or goods to fund that social impact. These make great partners. Think about it. Their mission is social impact. Your mission is social impact. If you match up with the right social enterprise, obviously with the same type of cause, there is a lot of good that can be done, and it's really exciting. So I think the rise of social enterprises just helps the entire ecosystem of philanthropy, nonprofits, and communities. Now let's look at it from the corporation standpoint. They are looking for partnerships that are more than, again, more than just donating. Now, we saw from the poll, a lot of those are the relationships that exist today, but more and more of them are talking about how do they go deeper in their partnerships? How do they get more innovative? How do they get a direct line to the hearts of their audience? And really what I should have wrote there was a direct line to the hearts of their stakeholders. So who are their stakeholders? It's a pretty wide ecosystem. First and foremost are their employees. Okay, I talked about how they need to motivate their employees and how they need to get them involved and keep them excited about what their company represents. But they've also got their board of directors. If they're a public company, they've got stockholders. They've got obviously clients or customers. They've got prospects. They've got business partners, sometimes hundreds or thousands of them, and they've got communities where they exist. They want to be able to connect emotionally with every one of those groups to show that they share values, that they represent something more than just profit, more than just, quote, corporate greed, that they are good citizens and that they stand for something. You as a nonprofit have the ability to help them do that. And that is your silver bullet. If you can forge a partnership that helps that corporation get those different groups of stakeholders excited about what they represent and offers opportunities for them to get involved on different levels, well, you have given them something that's tremendous. And in return, they should be giving you back something that's tremendous. And both organizations should advance and grow at the same rate. That's a true partnership. That's getting away from the one-off just sponsorship or money in exchange for PR. They want to be more than ATMs. They're looking for innovation and deep partnerships. So how do you start, right? What do you do first? Identifying potential corporate partnerships absolutely starts with intense introspection. And quite frankly, anything you do where you're looking to change or do something new should start with intense introspection, okay? That means looking within yourself, what's worked in the past, what hasn't worked, and be honest with yourself. Where are you trying to go? What do you think makes a good partner? What's your mission really about? What can you handle? That's a big one. Don't get involved in something if it's going to drain your resources. What can you realistically handle? Where do you want to be in 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years? Then start looking outward as you develop your strategy. That means talking to your staff, talking to your leadership, talking to potentially some of your donors in terms of what a corporate partnership would do for the organization, talking to The communities that you serve, please involve them in these discussions up front so that they can help build what makes the most sense to them, since they're the ones that understand truly what the needs are that face them on a daily basis. Engage AI and smart research. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Be super specific in your search. I'm going to show you some examples of very specific search and very specific messaging. And then the only thing I'll say, and I saw this in the corporate world, even for people that worked for me in sales that were selling to, like, the Fortune 100, um, and very intimidated by, that big bad corporation, that entity, that business. Here's the deal. You are not going to be interacting with a skyscraper. You are going to be talking to a human being or a group of human beings that have goals, motivations, aspirations, dreams, emotions, personal connections. And those are the people that you have to get excited about what a partnership with your organization would mean. So just real quick, let's jump back to the chat. We're going to move into a little bit of an AI, and it's not like a big lesson on AI. I'm just going to show you a couple of things. Just type one in the chat if your organization has utilized generative AI in some way, shape, or form in 2025. And I'm talking about your nonprofit organization, not what you may have done personally. Some of us use it for recipes and for trip itineraries and for gardening tips, and it's great for all that. But I'm seeing a lot of ones, which I'm excited. I actually have no idea how many people are in total are here, so I don't know what percentage this represents. But this is good. I want to at least know that you've all played around with it and you're using it in some format, because I think AI has a lot of good applications for nonprofits. And the most important is that it can give you back time and it can give you intensely deep research in record time that you can use both those things to spend more time talking to donors, prospects, potential corporate partners, rather than doing all this stuff yourself. And that makes you more human by using these tools. We have 41 participants on right now. Wow. Thank you all for joining. I really appreciate that. All right. So let me take you through what I've been doing on behalf of my clients. And I know there's a lot here. So just focus on the top part, right? What Provide a list. So this is a prompt that I use in ChatGPT. I am not advocating for ChatGPT today, okay? I'm not an affiliate partner. There's other tools out there that you might use. There's more and more tools being developed specifically for the nonprofit sector, which is awesome. So take a look at those. But I'm just trying to give you an idea of the search capabilities. So I have a basic prompt here, right? Provide a list of US-based corporations that have demonstrated support for, we're going to come back to the brackets in a minute. Insert your cause and detail and complementary missions, especially within geography. For each corporation, provide. So we'll come back to the top. This second part, these bullets, that's to me non-negotiables. You're going to have to customize the first part, but this second part should be in every time you're searching for this type of information. You want to know from the list that AI is going to develop, what are specific initiatives or programs they've implemented in the past? Who have they partnered with from a nonprofit standpoint, and what kinds of things did they do? How have they engaged their employees in the past? What's out there on the internet in terms of statements or quotes from key executives expressing commitment to a cause? Where are, recent press releases and things like that, website mentions, articles? And then you see my last thing in parentheses there. Please give me links to sources. And I do that for two reasons. Number one, to verify that it actually exists. We've all heard some horror stories of AI making some stuff up. But the bigger reason is that's where the gold is buried. That's the stuff you're going to read to really learn about potential corporate partners and what they're all about, who in their organization are leading these efforts that you may want to reach out to, and kind of where their heart is. So it's important. The first part, the advice I will give you in brackets is give as much as possible. Don't just say, your cause is to support the homeless or to shelter animals. Get really deep. Maybe it's 2 paragraphs long. It doesn't matter. The better the prompt, the more detail, the better information you're going to get. And when you talk about complementary missions, again, I'll use the homelessness as an example because I'm working with a client right now. Complementary missions might be corporations that have helped focus on mental health or are very big participation in causes for underfunded communities. So those might be complementary missions. So you write this all out and you drop it into your AI. Before you do that, let's remember it's generative AI. The more you feed it, the smarter it gets. So, before even starting this, if you haven't done this already, I would introduce yourself to your AI of choice. And I know that sounds kind of funny, but I would certainly drop in my website link to your nonprofit. Let them go to your website and find out what you're all about, what your mission is, what stories are being told. Share electronic copies of brochures. You can just drop PDFs right into ChatGPT or any other AI. If you've got press releases out there, and these don't have to be about corporate partnerships, just be about you, your mission, the communities you serve, what you're all about. Now, I understand some organizations are hesitant to put non-public information out there, so I leave this to all of you to decide, along with your leadership team, do you put some information on past or present corporate partnerships? Do you put some examples of emails you've sent out to donors, to prospects, to corporate partners, whatever it might be? The more you feed it, the smarter it gets, but you got to be comfortable with it. But those first three bullets are already public information, so I would encourage you to at least do that. AI is not the end. It's a means to the end. It's just going to give you a list. It's going to give you a list with the information I asked for in the bullets. But the gold is in that circle I've got there. The news articles, the press releases, CSR reports, social media posts from key company leaders or key people in charge of CSR or philanthropy or impact. So you're finding out why did they support this cause? What initiatives are important to them today? This is the stuff where there's no shortcut. Once you have the links to all this, you just need to read through it because it's going to give you the ability deep in your heart to understand, yeah, this is a good match, or maybe this isn't a perfect match. Maybe they're not going in the same direction that we want to go. It's going to allow you to really kind of filter down to a group of potential corporate partners that you want to focus on in terms of outreach. I want to just show you an example here. So I had a client, not really a client, just somebody I was helping at the end of last year. They are a Ukrainian charity providing humanitarian aid, specifically trauma counseling and relocation services since the beginning of the war. And so she came to me because they were really hurting for funding. I know you guys have all heard that story before, and really wanted to partner with a couple of companies in the US that she hoped could help carry them through the next couple of years. So we did everything I said up front in terms of the deep introspection, the strategy session, just really getting a feel. And then I took on the burden of doing the research and the outreach for her. So did exactly what I showed you in the prompt, built it up, got some suggestions, got the source material, read it all, realized that a lot of these companies had supported Ukraine right at the beginning of the war, but maybe hadn't done anything in the last couple of years. And then they came across this MasterCard thing that they had received the Ukraine Peace Prize. And there's a lot more to this article about exactly what they did and how they earned it. But I was really interested in the people. And there's Rory and there's Marina. So I went and looked them up on LinkedIn. Rory, great guy. But Marina, she is Ukrainian and she has stayed involved working with the Ukrainian government to try to get humanitarian efforts through, whether it's through MasterCard or her individually or other companies or organizations that she knows. So she is a big proponent of this type of thing. So I put together a very personalized email to her, sent it out, didn't hear back. We've all gone through that. I don't even know if it made it through their spam filter. So a few days later, I put together a LinkedIn DM. Don't ignore LinkedIn. It's a great, great, great avenue to reach people. I put together a LinkedIn DM, again, a variation, much shorter, obviously, of the letter that was, again, very personal, very emotional. And my call to action was just, are you willing to chat with me and the founder to talk about if there's some potential collaboration? Within an hour, she responded, I would absolutely be willing to speak with the founder. We set that up. We had that meeting. There was another meeting. There was follow-up information exchange. There's proposal exchange. We're waiting for approval. I can't sit here today and tell you whether it is going to result in funding, because as you know, there's always a lot of bureaucracy involved. Also, the situation over in Ukraine is changing by the day. But that meeting, that opportunity never happens, doesn't come close to happening without the strategy, the search, and the very personalized messaging to reach the right person. So I want to just give you that example before we move on. So this is really just summing up what I
Dan,
told. Yes.
Dan, I'm sorry, I don't mean to interrupt,
Oh,
but I
please.
do have a question because you brought up something really interesting, and I think a lot of people in development or the executive directors or whomever is looking to establish these relationships want to know. You mentioned first doing an email, then reaching out via LinkedIn. Uh, Nobody wants to be a stalker, but what would you say is the next step if LinkedIn doesn't work?
So I think there's a lot of things. I always have, and you can mix these up any way you want, Allison. It's a great question. I usually start with an email because it kind of lets you give a little bit more background. But I'm going to show you an example of a couple of emails in a little bit because there's a way to do it that makes them the hero of the story. And I also keep my calls to action (CTAs), whether it's email, DM, even if it ends up being a voicemail, keeps that very tame. I'm not asking them to become a partner day one. I'm saying, kind of worth a quick conversation, worth 10 minutes of your time, that kind of thing. So I'll go email, I'll go DM, I might go connection request. The other thing is, and I know Jared's in the chat, we had a whole session yesterday on with a group of us talking about how to utilize LinkedIn better. Once you know the people that you want to get in touch with, follow them on LinkedIn. See if they post. See if they're putting out content, comment on their content, engage with them realistically. Now, don't do what a lot of people do, which is just send a bunch of comments in one day and then reach out to connect and then hit them with a pitch on day two. It becomes very obvious. Take the time over weeks, maybe it's a couple of months, to start to get to know them and then connect with them and then ask them if they'll take that conversation offline. If you don't get anything on email, you don't get anything on LinkedIn because realize not everybody's active. Then it's good old fashioned pick up the phone or use LinkedIn or other methods to find out who might know that person and can you get a warm introduction. Maybe it's your board, maybe it's a colleague of yours, maybe it's a vendor of yours. So there's a lot of different ways. I'd say get involved in networking groups. Obviously, Nonprofit Resource Hub is a great place for that to start meeting other people who can introduce you. So I think I go a lot with email and connection request DMs, but I also engage a heck of a lot on LinkedIn to kind of build up my network. But obviously, cold calling and warm introductions would be the other way to go.
Thank you. And one other quick question, because
Yep.
I know that this is a question that many people would want to know also. Let's say you are researching a company. What's the typical title that somebody would go under that they would want to reach out to who would discuss a potential sponsorship with a
Yep.
nonprofit?
So good news on that. I've got some of them up here. It's, corporate social responsibility. I'm going to show you a search in a minute. Philanthropy officers, if that corporation has a foundation, the leaders of that foundation. Secondarily, it could be marketing type of positions. Could have positions that say social impact or community outreach, or even employee engagement. If you think about what I said, that is such a big part of nonprofit corporate partnerships. Luckily, it's a good lead in. I think this should come up next.
Thank you, Dan.
Oh,
Appreciate
no
it.
problem. It's actually a great question because so everybody, you're going to be getting, or you might have already received this presentation, you're going to be getting some other follow-up material. Part of that follow-up material will be a list of titles and what's important to each of them, broken down by primary, I hate the word targets here, but primary targets and secondary targets. And it's a pretty exhaustive list. So that will help you in your search as well. So it's demo time if I can figure out how to do this. All right, I just need to go to a different screen. I wanted to show you just quickly how I use this for my nonprofit clients to forge partnerships. So you'll see right at the beginning, this is ChatGPT. Again, this is just what I use. And I use the prompt that I had showed you earlier. Please provide a list of 10. You don't want a list of 100, folks. You want a manageable list because you really want to get very specific. I put in parentheses here, foundations are fine, but not other nonprofits that have demonstrated support for finding solutions for homelessness in the Western U.S., along with any related causes like mental health and underfunded communities that you deem relevant. Everything after that are those non-negotiable bullets that I talked about, what the output is. Now, when you guys actually do this, what you have as a description versus what I have here is going to be immensely deeper because you're living it every day, you're understanding it, you're going to do the introspection, the strategy. But I just wanted to give you a feel. So then it very nicely, we're on a really friendly, polite basis. I use please and thank you all the time. So they got me the list, but you can see there, it broke it down by initiatives, partnerships, employee engagement, and executive statements, exactly what I asked for, where I showed you the bullets. And it gave me a list of 10. Some are better than others. You can see it did sneak in, some nonprofits like Salvation Army, and I could admonish it, but I decided not to, because I was excited about this Amazon one. So let's focus on that. Initiatives. Remember, in this scenario, I'm a nonprofit trying to address homelessness on the West Coast. Um, Initiatives. Amazon's Housing Equity Fund has committed over $3.5 billion. Awesome. They collaborated with a nonprofit called Mary's Place in Seattle to convert a company building into temporary shelter. They got their employees engaged by offering a platform for customers and employees to purchase items for homeless families through the nonprofit Mary's Place. And then they tell me about an executive, Alice Shobe, who's their global director of community impact. So I am going to jump into this AP News article because remember, I asked for links to sources. And I'm going to check out this article. We are certainly not going to read it now, but it gives all kinds of information about what Amazon has actually done. This is stuff you're going to use when you're reaching out because it's talking all about specifics of their program. And then when you come down here, it talks a little bit about Alice Shobe and what she's done. So we're going to jump to LinkedIn and we're going to look up Alice Shobe because I have her name. And obviously, all right, a little warning here. I've practiced this several times, so this is probably the 18th time I'm going on Alice Shobe's profile in the last week. And so I'm pretty sure she's going to file a restraining order soon. And I think I will try to connect with her this afternoon and explain why. But this is kind of awesome. So we look up Alice Shobe, find out, A, she's still there because a lot of times you might get information, but somebody might no longer be with that organization. B, we go down and let's read her about section. Alice is a global social impact leader. She was hired to start Amazon's community impact programs and has grown them to multi-million-dollar investments. And then it goes on to talk about the Housing Equity Fund. Awesome. So she was brought in to do this. Now I scroll down. You might want to read when the people you're researching, you want to read some of their content. She's got a newsletter out. You're going to want to jump in and read her newsletter if this is the person you want to reach because you're going to want to, quote that or talk about that. I would recommend signing up for it. Become one of her subscribers so you know exactly what she's talking about. This is how you get to know people so you can connect on a personal level. What was really exciting was I went and looked at Alice's experience beyond Amazon. She was the interim CEO of Bellwether Housing, Seattle's largest nonprofit low-income housing provider. She was an executive director of Building Changes, which was a nonprofit addressing homelessness in Washington State. So she has lived it on the nonprofit side in the exact cause that I want to talk to her about. And now she's on Amazon doing the same thing. I mean, you don't usually get it this perfect match, but this is a wonderful match. I'm going to want to reach out to her. So I just want to show you two other quick things on LinkedIn. One is I don't know if you're all aware of this, but you can save someone's profile with two clicks. So under Alice, you go over here to where it says more, and you click on Save to PDF, and you get yourself a PDF. You can use that for yourself, so you have it saved, so you can refer to it easy. But more importantly, I use that in AI, dropping that in when I'm asked it to help me craft messaging. If you go that route, now you can feel free to write your own emails, write your own DMs. I wrote most of my own. I do rely on ChatGPT sometimes to help me when I'm stuck or to give me some pointers. Use your staff, use your agency, whatever works for you. Let's say I didn't have Alice's name, but I just, from everything I read, said, well, Amazon is doing a lot in the homeless arena. I need to figure out who to reach. I would go to the search bar. I'm going to keep this simple. Obviously, I've run this before. Look at Amazon corporate social responsibility or any of the other titles that I'll share with you in the document afterwards. Now, the first thing you want to do, you just want people right now. I mean, you could look at posts that have been made about that so you understand what they're talking about. But right now, we're searching for people. So I'm going to click here on the left on people. And anytime I do this, the first thing I do is this drop down list. And I click on Amazon as far as current company, show results. Otherwise, it'll show you people who used to work at Amazon as well, which could get you a little bit confused. So we don't need to go through these, but you can see Ashley at the top, social responsibility at Amazon. Jessica, Amazon community impact. Nikki, social impact at Amazon. There's people here, employee engagement. These are the people you want to put into your file, bring into your CRM, and start building relationships with, whether it's on LinkedIn, whether it's email, cold calls, inviting to events, whatever. This is an easy way to see who at that organization can help you out. So one last thing on AI. It's just some outreach. Again, do the outreach the way you're comfortable, but I want to give you an example here. So I dropped Alice's profile into ChatGPT with just an attachment. I said, I've attached this. Let's pretend I'm a fictional director of development at a local homeless shelter called Second Chance, that plays into Alice's past accomplishments, what Amazon's doing, and a call to action of a brief conversation. And that's exactly what it did. And the reason I want to share this was if you look at how it's constructed, the first paragraph is all about Alice. Again, she's the hero of the story, and it shows you've done your homework. It talks about her work at Amazon. It talks about her work at another place she was at. Then you go into a short description of, what your nonprofit is all about. And again, you don't want to talk about your needs. You don't want to talk about a partnership yet. You just want to talk about your mission and the communities you're serving. Then dive into Amazon themselves, because you've got kind of a double-edged sword here. You've got the person, but you've also got the organization and the great stuff they've done. And then again, what I would call a fairly tame call to action of a brief conversation. It then went on and asked me, and you're going to get copies of all these with the follow-up material. It then went on and asked me, do I want a slightly less formal version, maybe a specific city? I said, sure, go for it, San Francisco. And it gave me similar, shorter, little less formal, still professional, and still with those three things. Alice, a little bit about our nonprofit, a little bit about Amazon, and then the tame, what I'll call a tame and easy to digest call to action. Then it even asked me if I wanted to tie it to a specific pilot program, event. So realize that you can do any of that. You could tie it into an initiative you got coming up. You can tie it into an event you coming up. You decide how you want to reach out to the nonprofit and what kind of partnership you want to forge. It's really all on you. So let me try to come back here. Are there any questions specifically about what I just showed you? Can I show again how to drop someone's LinkedIn profile into ChatGPT? Yeah, so all you've got to do, let me go back to that. Absolutely. So first you're here. Let's leave Alice alone. I'll go to Ashley. Oh, I already have an invite out to Ashley. Apparently, it's pending. Okay. That was on behalf of one of the clients I have. So in terms of getting it, you simply go to more. This is on their LinkedIn profile. Click, save to PDF. Came up as profile 3. You can rename it so you know who it is. And then when you're in ChatGPT, I will just start a new one to keep it simple. You simply go, let's say I'm saying, please give me a summary of the attached profile. And you click the plus here. That's add photos and files. Obviously, I'm going from mine. This is in my download section. I did a different one by accident, but it doesn't really matter. You click on, and then you hit the arrow here to get it. And it'll give you a profile I did do Alice's by accident. That was saved earlier. And again, it gives you a whole profile of her profile, kind of a summary. So that's how you do it. It's really simple. You drop it in as an attachment, and then you ask it whatever questions you want to ask. So it's your turn. I need to give my voice a rest. I want you to put in what you just did. So what we're going to do here is just draft AI prompts that really work. So take 2 minutes, whether you've got a notepad, a laptop, whatever. And I really want you to focus on the first part. And obviously, this is not the exercise you're going to go through when you do this in reality, because I said there's going to be some introspection, there's going to be some strategy, other conversations. But just focus on the orange part. Don't worry about the bullets. You don't have to write them out again because that's going to be a given. And really focus on that first bracket. So think about what you would put down if you were dropping this prompt into ChatGPT in terms of your cause, your mission, complementary missions, and what kind of geography you want to cover. Do you want local business partnerships? Do you want partnerships throughout the US, throughout the world? A little of both. So just take the time to do that. And the idea is really just to get your wheels spinning a little bit. And if a few of you wouldn't mind then cutting and pasting and dropping that into the chat, just so your peers can see and I can see what you've come up with. And this can maybe be the takeoff point from when you go back to your office and start to work on this. So take 2 minutes to do that. It's 12:44. We'll move on at 12:46, but I think it's a good exercise while you're thinking about it to get that going. All right, I think that's been a couple of minutes. If you guys can finish up, I know that was not a lot of time, obviously, but the idea was just to get you to start thinking. And if a couple of you have that finished up and want to, cut and paste or retype into the chat, just again, so your peers can see what kind of statements you came up with to work your prompt for AI. But we are down to the last 14 minutes, so I want to move forward because there's still some good information I think is really going to help you out. Personalized outreach, we already talked a lot about that, right? And I gave you some examples. Um, when I talk about personalized and customized outreach, it's not about using their name or alma mater. When I was running a sales and marketing organization, I got so many messages that said, go Penn State or yay Nittany Lions, and then they just jumped into their pitch. And I was not impressed. They didn't make a connection. I knew that there's software out there that can scrape LinkedIn profiles and other sources and find out what college I went to. It's not difficult. What I am talking about is using your deep research to customize. So all that information we saw on Amazon, on Alice, you're going to use that. All right. Yes, Jared, we are Penn State. I'm a big fan, trust me. But also sometimes their timing was really off. Like sending me that the day after they lose to Ohio State, that doesn't work. That has the opposite impact. But use all that information you find to customize. Let's say you're following somebody's content on LinkedIn or other social media of someone you want to meet. Use that. I read your post about whatever. Use the deep research to customize. Speak to their past impact, the initiatives they're involved in, their involvement in philanthropy and corporate social responsibility. Remember, you got to tie it to their personal goals, but you also have to tie it to their organizational goals. Sometimes that's a little bit trickier than just reaching out to an individual donor. But the emotional connector is not with, like I said, you're not trying to get an emotional connection with a skyscraper. That's with the individual and make them the hero of the story. Win-win partnerships. I know that's a very overused term. I really, really do. But every message, every outreach, every conversation to me should be about how to transform both businesses. And yes, nonprofits, you are a business. You're a business, they're a business. One's for profit, one's not for profit. That's the only difference. You're equal partners and you should be transforming at about the same rate because otherwise somebody starts to feel at a deficit and then you don't have a good partnership. So I want to give you some creative ideas because nonprofits are looking for innovation. Some of these you know all about, some of these you've probably done, but let me jump into it. The first one, employee engagement. We've talked a lot about that. What I will say is find creative ways to get their employees involved. And like I said earlier, that could be volunteerism, that could be advocacy, that could be peer-to-peer fundraising. And even in volunteerism, think about it. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. There's what I'll call traditional volunteering, like I do at the dog shelter. I physically go there and I give my time and my effort. But not everybody wants to do that. Not everybody has the time to do that. And not everybody is geographically able to do that. So figure out how else could they volunteer? Could they do stuff at home for your organization? Could they do stuff on their computer? Could they do stuff online in terms of outreach? Could they make phone calls? Whatever it might be, think of different ways they can volunteer because I got to tell you, getting those employees involved is going to be 50% of the win that you get in terms of a partnership. In-kind donations, we all know what those are. Those are basically goods and services rather than financial support. Get creative. I've got a client right now who is a foundation for a hospital system in a very, very underfunded neighborhood, and we did all the strategizing. We've gone in some different directions, but in terms of in-kind donations, we're trying to have a little fun. We're reaching out to some high-end cosmetic companies. Think L'Oreal and God, I'm blanking out. Estee Lauder to try to get them to provide really nice bags filled with really nice lotions and soaps and all that stuff to give to mothers as they're leaving the maternity ward to go home, which is a little bit scary, to make them feel good about themselves. We're reaching out to clothing companies, department stores that have kids sections to get things that we can use for a back to school community wellness program for children in the fall or in the summer. So think outside of the box. It's almost limitless what you could do and how you can do it. This to me is so exciting, co-branding opportunities, and I don't think that that's done very much. I'm actually working with an organization today that's part social enterprise and a small part nonprofit, and they're using wearable advocacy. They're selling apparel to support their efforts to build communities for the homeless and to re-indoctrinate people back into communities. Um, but what they're doing is forging partnerships, and that's where I'm helping them. So there's going to be partnerships with corporations that might want to purchase, let's say a limited edition t-shirt or hoodie with the corporation's logo, this social enterprises logo, and some kind of slogan that they come up with together that works for both entities. And maybe they'll purchase those for their employees. Maybe they'll put them up for sale on both websites for, their customers, their business partners, using the proceeds to go partially to this enterprise, but partially to the corporation's nonprofit of choice. They're also
Dan?
partnering with non-profit. Was there a question?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I do have a question. Is there a time of year that's best to reach out to potential corporate partners? Is it when they're, I know everybody's budget season is a little bit different, but do you find in your practice there's a better time of year?
I haven't found that there's a better time of year to reach out. I have found there's sometimes a year to avoid, which is not surprisingly year end and year beginning. So you start talking about, it's probably the same for nonprofits too. So it fits very well. Having run, sales and marketing for and been in corporate leadership for a long time, end of year is the push to get business in and do what you've got to do. There's lots of stuff to do from a human resources standpoint, from a kickoff standpoint, and planning standpoint. So I would say that kind of, you know, after Thanksgiving and through a good chunk of January, it's going to be hard to get a hold of someone. But I'd say anything else besides that is fair game. So great question.
Thank you.
No problem. I've kind of knocked event sponsorship, and I don't mean to do that. Have your golf outings, have your galas, and yes, by all means, get corporate sponsorship, but take it deeper. Get their employees involved in not just volunteering for the event, but in follow-up. Do follow-up. Get them involved in helping connect people, working with the communities after the events are over. Don't make it a one-off. Have a long-term strategy, but by all means, use them for their donations to your galas, your golf outings, and other events. The ones on this slide are just a little bit different, and it's not going to apply to everyone. But again, I just wanted to get kind of your brains going as what is possible. So the first one, think about if you were a healthcare nonprofit, maybe partnering with a large pharmaceutical company to do some research that's going to benefit the communities that both of you serve. Under workforce development, let's say you're a nonprofit that helps people get back into the workforce, whether it's after domestic abuse, incarceration, whatever it might be, working with a staffing company, human resources department of a company that could provide training, coaching, materials, tools, resources for, again, the communities that you serve. And then the last one is, I would say, take advantage of the fact that corporations have really large engines for PR and marketing and advertising, and in some cases, lobbying. And if that matches up with what you're trying to do, let them really help you get the word out there, whether that's trying to, change policies and regulations or just to, again, amplify your mission and your cause. So just a question, I would love to see a couple people raise their hand. If you don't, I understand. But is anybody willing to kind of come off mute and share with us an example of how your nonprofit used one of the two slides of methods I just showed you? Let's just say beyond event sponsorships.
This question aligns with what you were speaking about year-end campaigns. Is it okay to not follow the leaders and do our campaign at a different time
Oh
of
God,
year
yes.
for greater engagement? Did you read that already?
I didn't read that, but oh God, yes, I've talked about it. Why do you want to swim in a crowded ocean? I think there's such an opportunity to stand out, to not do a big year-end push, to not do all your resources focused on Giving Tuesday. Use your year end maybe to just reach out to current donors and say, hey, was thinking about you, have a great holiday. And could we set up some time, in the middle to end of January to talk about your goals for the following year or something like that? Absolutely be different and hit different times of years. I don't know why everybody wants to butt heads on the same day. It seems counterintuitive to me.
Thank you. Uh, Dan, I will say that not with Nonprofit Resource Hub, but another organization that I worked with years ago, we were launching a program for women who are returning to the workforce after having children. And we did a ton of research on companies and organizations that supported that initiative and wound up at the time, it was still pretty new, approaching Flex Jobs, which is an online job placement
Yep.
for flexible jobs. And after talking with them, because they were still fairly new, which we found was really helpful, they wanted those relationships, they wanted to be involved. We actually forged a national relationship with them, and they were our biggest corporate supporter of that return to work program. So I always try to look for the newer companies with the hunger to want to partner, to want to
Yeah.
get in front of cameras and press releases and whatnot. And that's always been really helpful for me.
No, that's a great example, Allison. And I'll give you actually another one. I assume there was no hands up.
So we have a
Okay.
comment,
No,
but
that's
not a
fine. There's been a
question.
lot of stuff in the comments. The chat's
Oh, wait,
going.
no, no, no.
Oh,
I'm sorry.
Jared. I knew Jared would bail me out.
I'm happy to. I put a comment in. So I'm part of a local chapter of a national charity. We have a partnership called This Way Onward with Old Navy. Um, and it's been a really great anchor for us. So you had one of I think on your second slide, about youth and about employment. So it's a program where volunteers come in and help youth, like they give them a behind the scenes tour of an Old Navy, get them their first job sometimes, or like learn about what goes into retail. So it's kind of a feeder program for them. But then we've since had like collections from Old Navy. I just had a bunch of their volunteers come out to a basketball tournament. Like it helps like anchor a whole bunch of other ways to get them engaged. Um,
Jared, I just saw a commercial or a promotion about this like last week. I had never known that existed prior to that
oh,
with the
cool.
Old Navy program. So I think they're starting to do some promotion for it.
Yeah, it's funny. I think like I mean, I'm from the States but living up in Canada now, and we're so bad about telling our story. Like we're so shy. So all those stories, I think sometimes just becoming a little bit more active in telling like the work we do, like some of these really deep partnerships go a long way. And then lo and behold, once you go into some of the stores, like they invited us to like they do these community.
That's awesome. Absolutely awesome. So good stuff. I am actually going to skip the common pitfalls and mitigation strategy. You'll have this in your thing. It's all the stuff you would understand, which is lay everything out up front. Make sure that nobody's at a deficit. Get everything in writing, roles, responsibilities, timelines, measurements, all that stuff has to be there. And then, this is just a way of wrapping up. Identify natural alignment. Partnerships should not be transactional. They should be inevitable. It should be an aha moment, almost like a where have you been all my life type of moment. They share your values, and together you can do good work. Offer them multiple engagement. Use your data to gain trust, but use your stories to gain, to hit on their emotions. Be proactive in driving these partnerships. This is not, again, the corporation telling you what to do. It's working together to build something, and see yourself as an equal partner. Nonprofits, you are not at a deficit. You are providing them immense value, and in return, they should be providing you immense value. This is not a one-way street. Um, go back to your office and do some of this stuff before you forget it. I find people who take workshop courses, if you don't do something in the first couple of days, so it goes against a little bit what I've been saying, in that you got to do intense strategy and introspection, but have a little fun with it when you get back to your office in the next couple of days. Use the AI prompt, generate a list of 10, read all that source information, narrow it down to 5 that in your gut say, these could be potential partners. Go to number 4. Use LinkedIn the way we did it. Draft a customized email and DM. And you know what? If you want to just sit on it at that point while you strategize a little bit more, that's fine. If you want to reach out to some people, there's no harm. Worst thing that happens is you get a conversation going and you may learn more, and that may drive how you take this thing. The other thing I would say is whoever you decide to go after, look at their websites and see if they listed their board of directors. I did this for one of my clients, and we had gotten it down to about 10 organizations. About 7 of them posted their directors. I compiled kind of a little workbook, pictures, bios, and all that. Gave it to the executive director, who shared it with both their advisory board and their nonprofit board of directors to see if anybody knew anyone. Because again, going back to a question that came earlier, warm intros are a heck of a lot better than cold calls. So obviously, I am open here for any questions, but the biggest thing I would say is you guys did a great job today. You were actively engaged in the chat. I know this was a lot of information in a short period of time, but great job. That is Griffin, my rescue, who's been with us since August, and he is a good dog, and he has been very quiet behind me, which is appreciated. We'll go for a walk. I've got my contact information here, but you're all going to get it. And I'm open. I know we're at the time now, but if anybody has any questions, I am willing to stay on and answer any questions. But I appreciate you. I appreciate Allison and Christina, your help, and the nonprofit resource hub for giving me this opportunity and for giving all these nonprofits the opportunity to learn and to share with each other. I think it's really important in this day and age.
Dan, thank you so much. And I think, maybe there's room for a follow-up workshop. So, because there's so much to cover, but I put all of your contact information in the chat as well. If anybody has questions about Dan or the Nonprofit Resource Hub, you are always welcome to reach out to either of us, and we will be happy to connect you. Dan, thanks again. That was a tremendous amount of information, and I hope that you get some follow-up calls after this.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Have a great day, everybody. Thank
Take
you.
care.